And we're back, Independent Threads family, with another great episode. I am really excited to have Haas on the show today. This has been somebody that I've been listening to for quite a while now, and thought there were some things that I saw, and we'll get to that in a moment, where he's on his show, that I said, you know what, I think maybe Haas will be a good guest on here. And so, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Emmy award winning Haas?
Yes, I got to start saying it a little bit more. But
That's right.
yes, I'm Haas, host of My First Kicks. Really huge honor to be on here, man. Like, we've been talking back and forth on Twitter for a good bit now. So, and I've been
Yeah.
seeing what you've been doing. I've been loving it. Like I can only touch on so many voices. So I love that other people are actually taking the initiative and also touching on voices. So
Yeah.
like it's really dope to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Appreciate the love there. So, watching your show over the last little bit, you've been doing intros and outros,
Mhm.
and also your own little commercials for your Patreon, which I'll let you go ahead and do later. But during those, I was noticing that, you had a pretty good stack in one of your rooms,
Mhm.
a pretty good stack of shirts, and I'm assuming they're streetwear and different shirts that you got from different collabs, much like the one you're wearing right now by Joe Fresh
Mhm.
Goods.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
and so I reached out thinking, okay, maybe there's something here, because, for those that don't watch or listen to My First Kicks, just a little bit about it. Haas is always talking to people about their first kicks, but when you listen to the podcast, it's not completely about shoes.
Mhm.
They'll go off in different tangents. And so thought, a little bit different from what I've been doing, kind of the same thing talking to you. But when I reached out, you mentioned that streetwear is what got you into sneakers.
Mhm.
Say a little bit more about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, like growing up in the 2000s, whatever, like huge Echo fan. Like I was dripped out at Echo head to toe. But like New York is known for streetwear, and so that was like, I was always like, well, this is super regional, and only Queens people will know about this. But School of Hard Knocks was like my favorite brand growing up, like when I was a kid, because it was like super Queen centric, had the 718 on it. But streetwear and like the idea of just like what is behind streetwear and like fashion, like that was always just the thing that always pulled me in. Like I love that Rhino. I
Yeah.
always make references to Mark Echo. I even ran into Mark Echo a couple days ago, and he gave me, it was by accident. He was in the middle of a conversation, and I was like, oh my god, Mark. But and it was just very funny. But the the thing is about like when you fall in love with like a brand, it's
Mhm.
just like there's things that just like really speak to you. Like during the 2000s, Mark Echo was the first brand to really tap into Marvel and like
Yep.
mix these things together, like hip hop, graffiti. Like you had Mecca, you had a Redman's brand during that time. Um, but it really never spoke to me like Echo because I've been big into hip hop, and so when you're into hip hop, you got your tenets you got to follow, but like the big thing about streetwear was that it always connected to it, and it always felt really hip hop to me. So like, yeah, I'll never not wear streetwear. I will never be not down with streetwear.
Absolutely. In fact, it's funny you bring up Echo in the early 2000s. So I got married in 2006, so coming up on 20 years next year.
Hey, congrats.
And thank you. And one of the things that I did, I think it was, I can't remember if it was for the wedding or for the honeymoon, or I just happened to have it, but I happened to have a white Echo sweats and a big Echo just with the logo on the
Yeah.
chest. That was one of the fits. I was like, oh, I'm taking that on the honeymoon.
I mean, it's crazy because like if you go to ComplexCon, obviously they brought back Echo. Mark Echo last year bought everything. So I had a conversation
Yep.
with him, and he gave me the whole rundown about it last year,
Okay.
and like how he was bringing it back and like really trying to do it his way. And so Echo now has been like really coming back. Like I bought a shirt this year, and I bought a shirt last year too. Super fire. I mean, like the quality is still like it still needs to be, it's missing that like Well, Echo used to be like super heavy, super
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah. It was always like it felt like he spent way too much money on the material than he did. You know, like I was
for
like,
sure.
damn, you know, like if for $40 t-shirt or whatever, you'd be like, damn, man, this is heavy. Like you'd be like, and then the chenille Echo on the front where it was just
Yeah,
like weigh you down if you got wet. Yeah. So um to me, like that evolved once I moved out of Queens. It
uh,
evolved even more because then I found Supreme, DQM, Stussy. Like I used to do all the loops and hang around Soho because like that was when I also found like skating and like fall in love with skating and how that connected me into the that current age of like the 2010s of streetwear.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I guess it's safe to say that without streetwear, you wouldn't have been on the SB forums. You
Nah.
wouldn't have gotten into you wouldn't have got into sneakers, and we wouldn't have your podcast, and we wouldn't be
Nah,
sitting here today.
I mean, I definitely think that like the biggest thing about like so there was one thing that really stuck with me when I was younger, when I used to wear a lot of Echo. This
Uh-huh.
kid came up to me one day and he was like, you know, you're a billboard, right? Because you wear Echo every day, you know, you're a billboard. And I was like, what? And then I never really, and it didn't connect with me until I started getting onto like really repping like SB heavy and being like,
Uh-huh.
nah, it's SB or nothing, SB or nothing. But that all comes from just like brand loyalty of
Yeah.
like, you know, really being about the clothing that I was always wearing. Like I was such a hip hop head that like even when like Sean Price and Ninth Wonder and Buckshot did those albums with
Uh-huh.
Echo, I was like,
Yeah.
these are my favorite rappers. Like I was like going crazy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say that like elitism comes from that, and then
Okay.
it moves on to like I would move on to SBs, and then now I mean obviously I collect a whole ton of the sneakers now, but yeah,
Yeah.
it does lead that way.
So, in your answer there is almost like you're reading my notes here. But you know, being in New York, growing up in New York, especially at
Mhm.
that time where, as you mentioned, you've got the Stussies, the Meccas, the Echoes, like all these different brands. You know, what was that like? Because I grew up in the Midwest, and I always
Mhm.
felt like I'm trying to catch up with my East Coast relatives, or like I go to visit, and I'm like, what is this? Like, oh, you don't know? And I was like, no, we don't know because we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
Um, did it feel like you were constantly like almost like breaking your neck? Like every time you turn around, it's like, oh, there's a new one. Oh, there's a new one. Or like, what was that like? You know, growing up in New York at that time.
Is definitely interesting because like I paid so much attention to streetwear that like when I was younger, because it was everything. Like you had like the uniform sneakers because we weren't really
Mhm.
like rocking crazy stuff back then. We were like if you hung out with all right, this might sound a little bit crazy. But if you hang out with like a lot of Hispanic people, they wearing
Uh-huh.
like Nautica and TNs and they're just like, all right, TNs every day and some bootcut Nauticas. And you're just like, all right, now you're part of the Hispanic group. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. But like for me, it was always just like I love hip hop, but I wasn't in the school. Like I wasn't in school and everybody else loved hip hop like that, like as much as me. Like I was the one going to the corner buying like Hot 97 CDs and being like, "Yo, we got to listen to this," and or like I would just play it in the house, and these are all bootlegs and stuff like that. And it's funny
Yeah.
because I grew up where Nori's from, so I grew up around
Okay.
like Nori's block, and so you would think like you'd see Nori like pushing like everybody's like rocking crazy gear or stuff like that. Nah, it wasn't anything like that. We had one little mom and pop shop that sold fire stuff that like had a ton of Echo and Sean John and Paco and like they had the like the main stuff, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
once you're deep in Queens and you don't like venture out, you really are kind of like stuck in a specific set of the world. Like you're just like
Okay.
whatever's hot in the streets that makes it as far as like you, like as far as like yo, these are my peoples out here. Like, yeah, you get it. But then as I got older, when I moved into Manhattan and I started going to school
Mhm.
out there, that's when it went like crazy. Like, that's when like, well, all right, the Albanian kids were like rocking like Pele's and like it was just like white kids with there's white kids that say the N word, and they were just like, "Yo, yeah." It was crazy. It was
That's
crazy.
wild.
I went to used to live in a like Upper East Side is like predominantly rich people. So
Yeah.
like yeah, so like they were just because Albanian kids love hip hop. They love hip hop more, maybe basically more than me. But they don't understand that like the N word is a bad word. So they would just be like, they would just say it, and then you'd be like, "Yo, what?" And it catch you off guard, like, "Yo, you can't say that." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Why I can't say that? It's just a word." Like, nah. And then yeah, it just starts a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
in terms of just like streetwear during that time, look, all these times I'm talking about, look, I maybe bought like 3 or 4 fits here and there that'll last me throughout the year. I was like, you know how when people come on my podcast, they'd be like, "Yo, I only got 2 sneakers out the year." I was 3 or 4 fits out the year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
one pair of sneaker. So we was broke, baby. But like, I mean, I used to go to Jimmy Jazz, and I would just shop the sale racks and just pray that I'm putting the fit together. I used to, when I got to high school, I went to one of the worst high schools here, so I was getting picked on like crazy. So I just kept it black on black. So I had a Fat Farm shirt, some Sean John jeans, and then like we would just rinse and repeat every single time we can get. You know, I wasn't like, I have a ton of people that come on my podcast and be like, "Yo, I was getting crazy fits out," and I'll be sitting there listening to them talk about it, and I'll just be like, "I wish it was me. I wish it was me," because it never is. It never was, man. Because like the way that I grew up wasn't conducive to that, and let's talk about this a bunch. But it's just like it's either video games or sneakers, or video games or whatever. Like, you know, my mom would give me the essentials. You know, God bless her. But like that is something that I couldn't pay attention to because I was like, I get my games. If I can get my games, I'm good.
Okay.
So like, I'll tell you the moment that changed though is when I started working at GameStop.
Okay.
And then I
Oh,
was,
yeah. So
and
you're
now,
getting all the games,
yeah,
and now it's like, okay, now I can get all the gear.
yeah, exactly. And that's when I also found Supreme. I found, you know, like this is the height of like Karma Loop. Well, and then I used to go to a ton of underground hip hop shows. This is when I started getting real elitist with it. So I was going underground hip hop shows. I'd be on Moose Limited.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Moose Limited. I mean, I never copped the Siphon shirt, but I did have Kristen Castles. I had like one diamond shirt. I had like I would jump between Karma Loop and like Active Ride Shop for like, you know, some skate gear type of stuff, and then you know, like I'd mix. That's when I started really getting into like all the brands that were really popping up. Like people, I'm pretty sure people listening to be like, "What's Siphon?" You'd be like, "Yo, Siphon was this like old school brand, like hips." They did was just like, instead of like it was like FUBU, but for like underground hip hop heads. And so they did was like, yeah, like one of their main guys was Sky Zoo. Like you watch Sky, if you see Sky Zoo, a really good rapper, but like if you've seen Sky Zoo, he would always have like a Siphon shirt on. If you look it up, it's like old graffiti style, like, and it's just Siphon, and then that's it.
Okay. When you talk about Sky Zoo, like I had a bunch of Zoo York stuff. You know, and FUBU, but
hey,
so
I remember going to Jimmy Jazz one day and I saw like on sale for like $20 was the Fat Albert Fat Albert Platinum FUBU, but it was the shorts, and the shorts were like 3 sizes too big for me. Copped them immediately. I was like, yo, $20, I'm in.
I'll put a belt on. I'll have my basketball shorts on underneath it because you never know. Plus those, yep. You
already know, man. Need that past the knees and everything, man.
So, you know, you were recently on the Best Foot Forward podcast a couple months ago, and that, you know, you try to. This is kind of getting more into your podcasting, your methods, right? And you talk about how the conversations, you don't want them to be, oh, I could get that information if I go over here, you know. Talk to us a little bit about kind of your process, you know, like what depths you go into to try to make sure that you're putting on a good show, right?
I don't think I'd really ever asked myself this question. So I think it's just like I know I know when I have a conversation, it's gonna be a good conversation. I don't mean not to,
No, you can go ahead and do that. You can do that.
not to embellish myself, but
Yeah.
um, let's see. So, I mean, you mentioned Emmy. I mean, I'm a journeyman in terms of just like the entertainment industry. So, like,
Yeah.
in my career, my professional career, I've had to have maybe way too many conversations. It always started like one of my first like big jobs, I guess, would be like working at Dylan's Candy Bar and like having to talk
Yeah.
to celebrities like maybe like once or twice a week. So like you become very like whatever to it at one point,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um and so that makes it just easy to be like, all right, cool. I can just like figure out a way to get to a point that I want to get to. And so when I'm trying to traverse the maze of like the conversation, I do have my beginning point. I know where I'm going to end the podcast. And so, or these conversations, or even a conversation in general. And so for me, the fun is how do I get there? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my middle point, cool, I'm gonna get there. Or like if I know it, this is why I always stick to like finding people that I'm intrigued by, because if I want to get a specific thing that like I want to know how they got to that point as well, it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier to go through specific points of their lives, find something interesting as they're going through it, then figure out a way to get to that point, because it the journey that we are going across is going to be the journey I'm also going across, because when people listen in, I'm like, okay, yo, how did you get to here? But first, let's talk about you in high school. Oh, and then so like I always have things I can like pull back, and I'm always paying attention, which is why like I'll record an episode, like especially now because I've been doing only in studio episodes. I'm just like taxed at the end of the episode because I'm just like paying attention. I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. All right, no, then now put this in the back of my mind. Boom, bring that back. All right, cool. Let's go like that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's always been the fun about it, because when I used to do this, where I would be in like I would be in when I was working at Comedy Central, and like say like uh let's see, I ran into like it was a long time ago, but I didn't even get to. I ran into Pete Davidson one day, and so Pete Davidson, I was talking to him for a hot second, and so my thing is always to pick a random thing, so people can be like, "Wait, how'd you know that?" And so
All right,
that,
Nardwar.
yeah, but it's like I like doing deep cuts because it proves that I'm paying attention, and
Yeah.
so that's how I think people are listening and being like, wait, how do you figure out that, or how does he know that, or like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is while we're having the conversation that like I pick it out of there and people aren't really like listening, and then they're like, whoa, how'd you get there? And they'll be like, I mean, I'm just paying attention.
Yeah. No,
So yeah.
it's definitely a subtle art because when I've done a lot of conversations, especially at work.
Hmm.
I've hosted events and things like
Hmm.
that. And one of the things is you can have this whole list of information that you want to get out. But if you ask the person a question and they're like, yeah, that was cool. And then you get through like all your questions, you're like, wait, I wanted this to be half an hour. I wanted this to be an hour.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And you really have to think on the fly. And it takes
Hmm.
a lot of practice and a lot of paying attention because I think that's where a lot of people miss certain things is because they're not listening to what the person in front of them is giving them,
Yeah.
and that's where connections can be lost actually because you're like you're not even listening to me.
No,
you know
yeah. And that's like the biggest thing I like calling out is that like there's a we live in a world now where just people want to talk at people,
Mhm.
and it doesn't provide for good conversation. So
Yeah.
like I'm always intently listening, because then I have to make you pay attention to me also. So like that's how it works. And so when I used to go to these events, because I was trying to get the word out on the podcast and stuff like that super early on. So, I'd always just have just like a goal and being like, all right, cool. I'm gonna have like 3 or 4 conversations, make sure, I'm either leaving this party or event with a guest or a new listener or, somebody I can like, who's going to hopefully invite me to the next thing. So like
Yeah.
that, like you have to have like these small little things that will kind of like get you to really pay attention to these conversations, because if you're really intently listening and people are talking at you, once you get them to be like, all right, he's actually paying attention, they won't talk at you anymore. They'll be like, now we're having a conversation, because
Yeah, for
everybody's
sure.
always used to being like, I need to get my point across, you need to hear what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And we live in that world now, but now as I'm like figured out how to like disarm people quickly as I
Mhm.
keep doing this and keep doing my thing, like it has been a breeding ground for more and like longer conversations where we're actually having a productive conversation, you
For
know?
sure. For sure. For sure.
Mm.
So you talked earlier about your passion, like in being just singular focus, almost got the blinders on where you're talking about different brands and things like that.
Hmm.
Are you still like that, or are you more just I'm going to spray to all fields, and if there's something that I like by a creator or a brand or whatever, I'm just going to go with that? Like, are you still that focused, or are you just more I'm going with whatever?
I mean, if I see something dope, I like it, but I'm mainly Supreme, to be honest. I'm mainly, I mean, look, Joe Freshgoods does some amazing stuff. His recent drop with Pata was insane. I wish I could cop
Absolutely.
that. Hidden has been doing amazing stuff. Um, the Dreamcast drop recently.
I
If
didn't
I
catch
had,
that one.
yeah, if I had money, I would, whew, you know. But I think when it comes to like the way I like look at brands right now,
Mm,
I think I'm heading towards more just supporting the people that support me. Like,
okay.
I love like my boy. If you saw my West NYC episode,
Yeah.
I was wearing leave black boys let black boys be hoodie
Yep.
on that.
Yep. I saw that.
Yeah, that's my homie Olu, and he runs Progression.
Okay.
Like I've had Keem on. I need to get some Keem stuff, but like, I'll wear. I'm shifting towards like, if you rock with me, I'm definitely gonna support, because now this is like a one-to-one interaction. If I'm putting on, and this is not like, oh, send me free stuff. This is like,
Right.
like I bought this. I love Joe. So like I'm like,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm not over here being like, I'm only rocking with you because you send me free stuff. No, this is more like, and if anybody knows me, I don't like asking for free stuff. So that's like,
Yeah.
people have to force stuff on me, to be honest. But the I like, if I'm gonna be in a position where I can help, silently influence people to support brands that actually have like really good meanings behind them, then I'm gonna
Mhm.
do that more. But then on the other side, I'm still gonna be wearing Supreme, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Like, I mean, not all of the brands that you are friends with or support or patron regularly are going to have everything that you want, right? But I love that idea of, if I'm going to be that billboard,
Yeah.
right? Let me be a billboard for somebody that supports me, that's going to be
Hmm.
a billboard for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same for them, right? And so, that's why, I've been able, a lot of the early guests that I had on last year,
Hmm.
those are brands that I really rock with, and that I support, right? And some of, it's interesting because some, like, how brands evolve and everything. Like, oh, I loved a lot of the drops that came out then, but
Hmm.
maybe just for me, it hasn't worked recently. And so, like, they may be looking like, does this guy even really rock with me? And it's like, that design just wasn't for me, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, definitely into supporting who supports you, or who you've been, maybe in those rooms with, or you have known, and you're like, oh, I know what they're about. I don't.
Hmm.
They're more than just the Joe Fresh goods, on the. I've been in those rooms, or I've seen what they're about, or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
no.
that's the, I mean, that's the balance, and I would say definitely the luxury of doing the podcast and people rocking with me. I think that, without that, I'd probably still be just strictly on, probably just Supreme, really, because like it's the only brand that actually put together everything that I used to really, really rock with. Like their hip hop, their rock, their punk rock, their skating, their I don't know if I can curse on here, but I don't give a fuck. They're very
they're dropping that again this on Thursday, right?
Yeah, they're doing they're doing a collab with like, what's it, like Number 9, I think it is, which is so. I just found out that shirt, or like the skull on there, is Charles Manson's head. Like what? It's like, yeah, and I was like, whoa, now it's made it very cool.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Into that for sure. But it's just like, yeah, to me, because, so I don't know if you've ever seen the Supreme doc that's on ESPN Plus.
No, I didn't catch that one. I'll probably be watching that when I get off of this.
Yeah, it's really good. But I would also say there's another documentary that you should watch together with it. I'm gonna have to remember what it is, but it's about the club scene during that time, because they talk about how Supreme was created. And so if you push the two together, you get a full story of how Supreme in New York was created. Okay. And so, because they wash away a lot of stuff on the ESPN doc.
Yeah, well, ESPN is ESPN.
Yeah, exactly. But what Supreme is rooted in, and I mean, like, it's a corporation now, whatever, it's a public entity, whatever, all that stuff. To me, it's always been cool to me, and it's always been skate to me, and I feel like we're slowly losing more and more skate shops. And so, if I'm gonna buy something from a corporation, from whatever VF Capital, I don't know, whatever it is, at least it's gonna be on some, fuck you type shit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, when you're doing your podcast, right, and you got all this gear, how intentional are you about the outfit that you're wearing? Or is it just like, oh, I ain't worn this in a while, I'll just put this on and it'll be fine? Or do you really think about that?
I mean, I always dress shoe first. So,
okay,
I'm making sure I'm not wearing the same shoes over and over, because, like, yes, that would be insane if I'm talking about sneakers, and then I'm like 3 episodes in a row wearing the same sneakers. But like, I've always made sure I'm not wearing the same shoes per episode, and then from there I build the fit on top of that. I'm, in terms of just like intentionality with the fit itself, I try not to repeat outfits, or if I'm like if I'm repeating a shirt, I at least not repeat the pants.
Okay.
But at it just depends, because like, I don't have an extensive closet. Like, my closet's not crazy, but I do have some cool stuff, and I like to, hopefully show off that I got like at least a decent wardrobe. But if not, I'll run a black on black, just to make sure, and put some bright shoes on. Yeah. I mean, for a hot minute, I was trying to just rock like my First Kicks t-shirt, and then and I was doing that for like a couple episodes. No, I did that for like 5-6 episodes, and then I was just like, I can't even sell this shirt, so why am I wearing it? So then I took it off, and then I was like, damn, I should probably wear it again. When I wore it at Complex Con, and I do have shirts to sell, and I should do it, but I'm just like, nah, I'm already just switched back to like not having a uniform, and I'd rather not have a uniform.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if you see me in public, I'll probably be rocking the shirt. It's a different situation though,
Yeah, I mean, like when you're going to say something at Unheard Of down in Cincinnati, there's going to be new faces, and you might wear that, and they'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" Let me. Even if you don't talk to them, the people online, they'll see that and be like, "Oh, what's that? Let me check that out. Like, what's going on there?" Right?
Yeah, and it's also because I have a QR code on the back, so you can scan my shirt, and it'll take you to my page. Okay. So that's why. Come on.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you mentioned it a couple times back in high school, that they kind of gave you a hard time. And
Mhm.
then just now, right, about the black on black. When did you break out of that or say, you know what? I forget all that. I'm going to be who I am. Let me start expanding my wardrobe and being cool with color and all of that.
Oh man, you asking the hard questions, man. Uh, Honestly, I think it's a little bit more recent. I want to say. I don't know. I've always been one to take chances, to be honest. Um, like I'm not shy of just being like, all right, if I put something on, I got it on type of thing.
Mhm.
Like I'm just like I just like if you want to try to come at me, I mean, just be ready. I'm firing back. But like, that's always been my
That's
personality.
years of being maybe bullied a little bit. Like you had to grow
Bullied.
that.
What? I
You,
was I was beyond bullied.
but like you created that ability to fire back, right, and
Yeah.
defend yourself.
Yeah. I just think it's just like I've always said this and people have really confirmed it with me. I just think being fly is more of a state of mind.
For sure.
You don't let the clothes wear you. You wear the clothes.
Right.
But I do think, I always and I say this a lot, you got to give people grace. Sometimes people just step out and are just like not thinking they're going to be going any place important and end up in an important place. And it's just
Yeah.
like you're wearing that, be like, yeah, I thought I was just going to be going to get like food at like at the restaurant. But my boy's
Yeah.
talking about we now let's go to this event, and I'm like, what? How'd you end up here? Like, like, yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
happens.
oh, it does. Absolutely. I've had times where I'm like, I should have worn what I was thinking about wearing,
Mhm.
but decided I was like, nah, it ain't even that type of, like, I'm doing too much if I put that on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I've never like I'll take chances on some fits. I mean the
Okay.
Anwar episode, I wore that purple shirt and then I looked back at the
Yeah.
episode, I'm like, that was a bad idea. Like there's a Trey's episode I got roasted by my group chat about because they were like, yo, you got too many colors going on. Cause I had a carrot shirt with the Spider-Man jacket on. And I was like, listen, man, I thought it was dope. I don't really care what you got to say. I do think it's just like I'm down to just try things, and I think anybody who's listening to this and is afraid to try something, just try it because like
Yeah.
you never know. I do think at least look in the mirror and be confident in yourself before you step out because if you are thinking like damn this fit is bad, people are going to be feeling that like damn this fit is bad, and you're gonna but it's going to be 10 times that you're gonna
Oh,
be
for
feeling
sure.
that. Yeah, you're gonna be like why is everybody looking at me, and you'd be like and nobody's really looking at you, and now you're feeling like damn they're probably gonna text somebody that I have a bad fit on. Like you just be like no, just look in the mirror one time, be like, you good with that? All right, cool. I'm out. And then that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that it's definitely a mindset because I've seen people wearing stuff and I'm like, I could never put that together. But it's the confidence of them moving through the room with that on, and like it just works.
Yeah. But I also think it's just like what you want to wear. You
Yeah.
and you got to really abide by that because yes, you'll want to there's you we're all creatures of comfort and at the end of the day, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Um but just know the hardest person to impress is the person in the mirror. So as
For
soon as you
sure.
look at it and you impress yourself, you're gonna impress everybody else out.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, um, kind of going back to the podcast a little bit, you just hit 5 years a couple months ago, so you're
Mhm.
five and some change now. But recently, I feel like, at least my impression of your growth is these last couple years has been exponential as compared to, say, the first three, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the halfway mark, right, if you will.
Mhm.
And I've also noticed that you have been going to more things, and networking more and doing a lot more of that. Is that is the growth a a healthy byproduct of you wanting to be outside more, or is you being outside more an intention because you wanted to see the growth that you're now experiencing?
It's definitely the latter. I if you listen to my earlier episodes, and I think I feel like you have, where
Yeah,
there are moments where I mean I've always been candid. It is my thing. So like I've always been candid about like why okay, maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe I'm not like I'm like I say these things on the podcast because it's a
absolutely.
it's like how you gonna know where I got to without the impression of like how long it took me to get there, right? Like this is
Yeah,
what this audio format is made for. And so I was like spinning my wheels for like 2 years, not in terms of just like the concept or anything like that, but I was trying a lot of things and some stuff wasn't working, some stuff was. And so I was just like, the world's starting to open up, and a lot of people are telling me no now because they're like, "Hey, I can't do this. I got to go to do this," or "Hey, I can't do this
yeah,
because I got to go do that." And I'm just like, why don't I just start going outside? And so I had this conversation with KO on the episode on his episode. I think it was his second appearance on the podcast, and he was just like, because I asked him, I was just like, so how do you create community, especially out in Atlanta? And he was just
yeah,
like, you got to go to a lot of these things, man. Like people have to put a face to the name, because like we can, the internet's going to internet, and sometimes you can blow up, sometimes you can't. But
yeah,
if people know who you are, they'll buy in more, right? It's a lot easier sell versus being like,
absolutely.
okay, I see a post, it looks all cool. It looks all right. Like, but they're not gonna give you the time, right? You're not doing the extra like, oh, I'm following how X content creator has told me I should do this, and now I'm doing it, and now I'm doing it 3 times a day, and like I don't got time for that. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I work a
No,
full job, man. Like,
yeah,
and so I was spinning my wheels in terms of just like, okay, how do I differentiate myself? And this is what I kept saying. Year 3 was like, all right, if you ever had a conversation with me, then I'd always be like, how do you differentiate yourself? And I'd be
yeah,
like, all right, cool. I know what I got to do. I just got to start going to these events. So Extra Butter, my first like dabble into this was my boy who works at Extra Butter. He was like,
mhm,
yo, we're starting this thing every Thursday, Lowdown Thursday. If you come, it's going to be people from the industry and stuff like that. You should definitely pull up. So I went in there, and I was very like, I don't know. Like, I don't know I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to talk to,
yeah, yeah,
blah, blah, blah. I got introduced to a couple people. It was cool. And then, regroup on Friday. I was like, all right, cool. Next time I go next week, I'll make sure, I'm have a conversation, tell them about the podcast. Hopefully I get a new follower. Boom.
yeah.
This was like, I was at maybe like 500 followers during this time. So like
Okay.
on Instagram, and maybe probably way less on Twitter, and even less on TikTok. And so I started doing that. I was just like, hey, I'll go talk to people, and I'll be like, hey, this is this is that, this is my podcast. And I started creating my pitch, and my pitch now, which I'll give y'all, is, hey, I do this podcast called My First Kicks. I use sneakers as a through line to get to know somebody. I would love to have you on. And that's usually how that's how it go. And it's very, very nonchalant, and people really buy into that. And then it just started. I started going up to people more. And then I went to Complex Con that year.
Mhm.
And then I started doing that there. And it just evolved into this thing where people started knowing about the podcast, but they didn't follow me at all, which was the craziest part. Trust me, I have this whole thing about this. It's weird. It's very weird. When I first started the podcast, shout out to my boy Chris Chaney. We had these conversations because he used to have a podcast too. But the hardest thing about this specific topic, sneakers, streetwear, is that we're trying to talk to cool people, and cool people don't want to give you anything unless they think you're cool as well. So like, there's this like there's this like push and pull thing that you have to do, where you have to be like, yo, come to my, check out my thing, and then, you know, maybe you'll have somebody big, and then you'll be like, yo, I had Brendan Dunn on, you should check it out. Oh, yo, I'll follow immediately, bro. I've been telling you about my podcast for the past 2 years, and it took you to that point to, like, but but this is the thing though, it's just like it makes sense because, like, to me, if somebody, and many people have done this to me, right, I'll be like, and this is why I default to just be like, yeah, I'll follow you on my personal, because I'm just like, now people are looking for like the My First Kicks follow, and I'm like, nah, it's save for guest. Now I'm the cool person now doing this, and so it's just this big cycle. But I always show support. I always pull up on everybody. Like I've been nicknamed the Mr. Outside guy, whatever. It's all cool. Like I always make sure I have time to do those things, because doing the extra things where you're not just constantly pushing yourself and be like, yo, please listen. You're actually interacting with the community, and you're actually like taking the time to give them your time while they give you their time. You gotta invest in order to get invested in. And so that's my biggest takeaway from starting that 3 years ago.
That's very fair. Very good points, because I see some of the folks, some of the brands, and some brands that I follow and things like that, and they just, nobody in particular, but I think there are some that are more trying to create community than others, right? And and some people just have that skill, and some don't, or some are working on it, or whatever. We're all at different points in our journey, right? So, what has been, or maybe is there a guest that, because you've had some pretty amazing guests on there from all different walks of life, but is there somebody that you're still maybe not chasing, but like you're like, you know what, I think they would be a phenomenal get if that could work one day?
Nas, probably.
Okay.
That's been the top. That's been the name on the top of my mind for the past like 3 weeks right now.
Why Nas specifically?
All right, so I worked at Time Inc. for a little stint. Time Inc. did I'll give you this story. This is a story I was saving for the podcast when I do it with him. But
exclusive.
I'm sure people who's like been in my vicinity have heard me tell the story. But like, I worked at Time Inc. for a hot minute, and then Time Inc. Did Time is Illmatic, which was like they did their like anniversary for Illmatic. So Nas came in, we watched a movie with Nas, and he was on stage with the director, did a Q&A. At the end of the Q&A, everybody just spent mad time asking me like, what is it like being, black man? How do you push up black community and all this stuff? Like, it was like 8 questions like that. I was just like, me, hello, me. And then I got the mic, and he's just like, and I'm pretty sure he thought I was going to be like, all right, as an aspiring, person of color. No, I was like, so in the song Daughters, it sounds like you're battling your daughter. And he's like, his eyes perked up. He's like, oh shoot, this is a real question. So like, so I said that, and I was just like, it sounds like you're battling your daughter. Current rappers now don't really show their age. How does it feel to be a rapper that, really wants to, show that they are their age in their raps? And he was like, first of all, thank you. But second, I was just trying to, that was like a tongue lashing from my daughter. She was messing up. And I was like, you know what? And then he answered the age question. And he was just like, I don't really see why rappers are afraid to show their age in rap now. We are all growing, and some of us are lucky to be alive at this point. And then he's like, you know what, ask another question. And I was like, so then
I didn't have another one.
So then I asked him, I was just like, yo, the second question was like, yo, do you still really go at it in the booth? Do you still have that chip on your shoulder that you did in the like you did in Illmatic doc? And he was just like, my thing, it's changed for me and this and that. And I was just like, cool. Didn't think anything of it. It ends because he's just like, all right, cool, I'm not taking any more. And then I was just like, cool. I walk up, like, because I was sitting like 4 rows back, or maybe like 5 rows back. I'm walking up to go to the exit because I'm thinking like, yo, it's over. I walk up, security guard starts pushing people to the side. Nas comes up to me, daps me up, and he was like, yo, man, you crushed it. I was like, what?
What?
then the director of the film comes up to me after, because we were waiting outside, because I was over here being like, yo, I can't believe I dapped up Nas. I can't believe Nas even spoke to me. Right. So I'm standing at this table. The director of the film comes up to me. He's like, yo, man of the hour, man. Man of the hour. And that was, so I'm like, I need to tell this story to see if he remembers this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But so who could tell you anything the next day at work? Or were you like, nah, I'm him, leave me alone. I'm riding that for about a week, if not a month.
So this is what happened. And this is why it all came crashing down the next day.
Oh no.
I go, so my coworker filmed it for me, and I was supposed to have the video of it, right? So I go, I'm like, yo, let me get the video. This is when AirDrop on iPhones was just starting to like come out or whatever. We tried to AirDrop. I thought I had it on my phone. Never got it on my phone.
No.
Crushed.
No.
Crushed.
So
that's why I'm like, I need to get in front of him so I can tell him the story. Because I know the sooner I tell him this story, he's gonna be like, I gotta get on your podcast. Like that's I'm telling you, I'm banking on it. That's gonna be like, and then you're gonna be like, I'm gonna be like, yo, I'm gonna post a picture because I'm not gonna wait. I'm literally gonna post a picture as I take the picture. Yo, he's in the building.
Like, we might not see the episode for 2 weeks, but you gonna let us know, like, yes, he was here.
I was very hyped with the Deontay Kyle episode, which is gonna end this year.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, that's why I posted. I was like, y'all gonna have to wait for this because you know.
That is a fantastic story, and like way to take your shot and take that risk. That is amazing. So as we're getting kind of close to the end of the show here, I'm gonna take a little note from you. So I want you to think about that moment right before you hit record for the first time 5 years ago. So you today is standing behind Haas 5 years ago, about to hit record.
Yeah.
What are you going to tell that version of yourself?
Shoot. Let's see. I mean, this could go any other way, you know. I mean, I would tell myself, it's what I've been telling a lot of people is wait. I'm just be like, you know, you're gonna hear a lot of no's before you hear any yeses. Yeah. And just keep fighting. Just keep fighting for that. Keep fighting to turn those no's into yeses. You know, that is that was one of the hardest lessons because nobody likes rejection. I talked about it on Jazz's episode. Jazz was one of the first no's I ever got. And it really put a chip on my shoulder of like, you know, maybe not chip on my shoulder. It really deterred me for a hot second. I had to really step back and be like, maybe my idea wasn't original. Maybe what I'm doing is not that great. And so, that, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I would just tell myself, just keep fighting. Just keep fighting yourself, because I am my biggest critic. Nobody can ever, you know, knock me down, to be honest. Because I've knocked myself down for years before I even got behind the microphone. And so when it comes to, you know, being resilient, you know, I taught myself that. I think that, like, just keep putting your head down, and it's all going to work out the way it's going to work out. You know, you're gonna be going to you're gonna get invited to freaking Portland and going to Nike campus and stuff. So like,
no, the podcast is definitely you've talked a lot about many of those experiences, and you've had some pretty dope experiences. But what would you like to see over the next 5 years? You know, thinking forward, what do you think you'd want to see happen to the podcast?
I mean, honestly, I would like to guest on more other stuff, right?
Okay.
Like, uh look, we can talk about it. We can talk about it real quick. But like, I don't call myself a content creator.
Yeah.
I don't, I strictly call myself a podcaster. I only make a podcast. I only push out clips for the podcast. I can't really say I'm pushing out content and being like, yo, check out, this review of this. No, I'm always just
Right.
like podcast, podcast, podcast. So the reason I do that is because there are so many podcasts that are out there, right? I can jump
Mhm.
on, your stuff. I can jump on Joe Buttons. I can jump on, and just talk because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have these conversations. I'm trying to, point out, commentary and make these like, just make jokes, share stories. Like that's what I always think podcasting is about.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a conversation I had recently. I don't think we should, and I hope this doesn't, deter you as well, but I don't think podcasts should be taken seriously. Like I'm talking about like actually, being like, I'm cutting everything off and I'm just gonna make a podcast, like I think that like I think this is fun and we should keep it fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, there's going to be cool things that happen around us. And there's going to be, as long as we keep being consistent, people will tune in. But as long as we're all having fun, it's going to like, we need to keep it fun because we're in the next 5 years, if we're the way we're going, bro, right wing media has gotten us being like, now we got podcasters in the White House. Like, so this is why I'm standing behind this because it's just like we should be like, we are not journalists. Like I'm not a journalist. Like if a journalist makes a podcast, that's a journalistic podcast. Like they're gonna do, I got, you know cited sources and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I get stuff wrong all the time on my podcast. I got the year of Black Cements coming out wrong, and I got like 8 messages being like, yo, they came out in 2013. I'm like, all right, bro. Like I didn't say it was. I was like, it's fine. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't say this is like, I'm gonna get stuff wrong all the time, and I think that's
Yeah.
okay. And it's cool. I will banter back and forth with you because that's what we do. Like I'm here for all the fun, and I'm here to have fun, and it should always be fun.
No, absolutely. I think that doesn't deter what I'm trying to do. Like, I want this to be fun. Do I want people to maybe learn some things, or they'll hear a brand maybe you mentioned or something
Hmm.
like, oh, what's that? Let me go check that out. Let me learn something about the
But that's
history of
fun.
streetwear. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's mad
Absolutely.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I agree. Like, yeah, I'm not trying to, I, I might bring in, things about GSM and all that kind of stuff at
Yeah.
that. But at the end of the day, yeah, would it be great if all of a sudden one day, I'm getting some kind of deal where I can make this my full time thing? Th- Cool.
Yeah.
If that never happens, I'm still okay because I'm going to be talking to people that I come across
Hmm.
and I'm going to learn something from them or I'm going to learn about them. And I never know. I might make a new best friend for life because of this podcast,
Hmm.
whatever, right?
But that's also part of the fun. This is what I'm saying. This is so that's why I called out we got right ringers in the White House, right? Like we got people that are just like taking this as like this is a platform that we should be able like say like, all right, let's make this like some sort of thing where I'm like, all of a sudden now I got what was it, Elliot Hill in the couch, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now, all I just want to do is learn about his journey. And then somebody's gonna be like, why didn't you press him on, quarter 4 of Nike? I'm like, no, man,
that's not what
that's
this
not me.
is.
Yeah, that's not what this is,
Yeah,
like, and look, it's cool if you are able to do that and you've got the backing, but I've never had a seat at that table, and I don't want to do that because my profession, my career is in project management and
mhm,
entertainment. Like I know what I'm capable of, and I love like being able to put people on new things, put people on new people, put people onto just like really cool stories, and you know, putting giving people a chance to do that, like that to me is fun. Like I don't think we need to be putting specific podcasts on a pedestal and being like, there, whatever they say is that's the facts. There you go. You don't need to listen to anything else. Like
Yeah.
you're taking it too serious. Just we can all listen to everybody's stuff. We can all listen and support everybody's things. Like, and we can all help each other and we can all have fun together. It's you know, like that's what it is.
100%, 100%. Like
Yeah.
I listen to my family thinks I'm an Uber nerd because I'm listening to podcasts all the time, whether it's about history or
Mhm.
sneakers or whatever else, right? It's just, you know, but I now it's become more and more sneakers, whether it's you or the Sneaker History podcast or
Shout out.
Soul Brothers or whoever else, right? You know,
Mhm.
so well, cool. So as we get out of here, where can people find you?
You can find me at Who Is Haas on all social medias. Follow the podcast, My First Kicks Pod. Um, you know, Patreon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about yeah. What do people get with the Patreon?
All right. So it's coming. All right. I'm trying. I got to spend time with it for a little bit.
Okay.
But you get extra episode. I'm trying to get an episode from my trip from Portland, my episode trip from BFF. Trying to do just like just a current events type of episode of what's going on. A
Okay.
lot of people have been wanting my like a people have been really I don't know why, but they enjoyed my solo episodes of me just ranting. So I was just like, I'll probably do one of those again.
Yeah.
You know, added content. Like I was supposed to add, I gotta add all the content I shot for Complex Con 2023. Yeah, 2023. I have like a ton of stuff that I just
Okay.
shot with my boy Foggy. All like high quality photos that I get from anybody from the stuff that I've done or outside. That goes up there. You know, I try to make it very cool. You can ask me questions out there. You can make suggestions. You can drop your My First Kick story on there. The goal is, of course, is to do different tiers, hopefully add a couple different shows on there. I
Okay.
want to do like a My First Kicks with y'all type of thing. My bad. That's kind of ripping with what my boy Ryan Sickler does with his Patreon, but I do want to make this a community thing. That's the whole point about this podcast. It's not just me sitting across somebody famous every week. Like this is supposed to be, you know, super inclusive. It's not just like, you know, oh, Haas is blowing up now, he's not going to talk to me. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I try to make sure that, you know, I answer every DM. Unless you're a guy from India that's trying to cut my clips, I'm not answering those DMs. But I try to make this inclusive. This is a community. I'm trying to build this community. This is not just like, yo, send me money and it's for nothing. You know, it
Okay.
all goes right back into the podcast and it helps everything.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on, and go follow Haas. Go follow My First Kicks, and we'll see you out there on the timelines.
Yeah. Don't forget, wear your kicks. Peace.
Wear your kicks.